Good day, and welcome to my latest video, this one on the broken idea of classics. That's right, how the idea of classics, and I'm being quite specific when it comes to literature, classics, okay? So, and I really do want to make sure that that's clear because there is a difference in the medium of the art, right? Paintings and sculptures, those are not as accessible by every person on the planet as books, right? I mean, I can have a copy of any book practically on my doorstep within a week or two, and I cannot have the Mona Lisa. I could have a print of the Mona Lisa, but it's different from the actual painting or of a Turner painting, John Constable, or the Three Graces by I forgot his name already. That's dumb. I want to write a book about the guy. And I forgot his name. Anyway, my brain's a little fried. I'm a little tired. A lot of stuff going on in my house. So, but it's really about books because books are such an accessible medium at this point. They're one of the most accessible mediums that exist at this point, except for streaming TV and movies and stuff. The idea of classics is a good one. It's, the notion that we can agree that here is literature that is important to a time, to a place, to a zeitgeist, to an era of culture or our society. That's important, and obviously you can't expect universal agreement on that, right? Even when books like The Great Gatsby were written, people back then still didn't like them, right? And people, nope, not everybody liked Moby Dick. Sorry, Melville, they just didn't. Not everybody liked Hemingway when he was actively writing and kind of big in his world, or Truman Capote, or whatever. Not everybody liked him, but today we look back on the older stuff and we say there's some of that stuff that's classics, and it's arguable what should be counted as classic and what shouldn't be counted as classic. It's arguable about the principles that we should apply when we're saying this is a classic. Does it encapsulate a time, a place, like I've been saying, or a certain aspect of culture or society or history or art or something so well that it needs to be a classic? I mean, the truth is, the people who determine classics are teachers, essentially, right? Or the people who create curriculum for learners, right? In universities and in schools, those people are the ones who are determining classics. And that's really why the idea of it is broken. Because not that there's anything wrong with teachers, both at the university level and the high school and elementary school and middle school level, determining what the kids should read and asking them to read these things and expecting them to read certain things. But there's no question that they're trying to have the kids be challenged. They're trying to discomfit the kids. And that can be a very, very good thing, except for that the kids aren't always as fully invested in their own personal education as maybe the teachers are, or definitely not as much as their parents are, right? We all know this. Kids are not as engaged in their learning as we'd want them to be, which is why there's unschooling and homeschooling, right? To try to meet their needs in a more individual and customized way. The truth is that there are classics out there that I think that should always remain classics, and then there are some that are just terrible, okay? Things like The Great Gatsby. That's it. That's garbage. But a lot of people love it. To me, it's garbage. And I hated reading it. I hated every moment of reading it. I read it on my own accord, because I didn't have regular school. I was removed from public school 1 month into my 5th grade year, and I returned to public school 7 years later for my 7 years later for my senior year, right? In between that time, I was in faith school, the cult I grew up in, and the education was questionable at best, okay? And there was no chance that there was a reading list that we were to get through in that hysterical excuse for school. So I know that there are gaps in my classical education. So I mean, I've done a lot of this reading on my own. I read Great Gatsby on my own and some other classics on my own, To Kill a Mockingbird. The thing is, there are books like The Great Gatsby and A Catcher in the Rye, and even Moby Dick that, for me, suck. I recognize the craft that went into it, but I just don't enjoy reading them. This is an important thing. I'm coming right back to it. I don't enjoy reading them. I did it because a class wanted me to in Moby Dick time, and then because I wanted to make sure I had read these books. And then I read To Kill a Mockingbird when I was in my 30s, and I got so much out of that book. It's deeply, truly one of the greatest novels I've ever. It may be the most perfect novel I've ever read. Right? I mean, it's not my most favorite or my most enjoyable novel, but it may be as a novel one of the most perfect experiences I've ever had. It's phenomenal. It's the art, the craft, the effort, the love, the passion that went into it is just mind-blowing. I closed that book and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'll ever be the same. It's so powerful. And I know that's not a universal experience, but I had that experience at the age of 30. Why are we asking, I don't know, 14 or 15-year-olds to read that book? There are some 14 or 15-year-olds that are going to love it. They're going to say, whoa, this is amazing. But if they read it when they're 30 or 40 or 20 or whatever, they're going to get even more out of it as long as they're not burnt off the idea of reading. And that's where I'm coming back to. I don't enjoy reading Great Gatsby or some other classics like that, Catcher in the Rye. What happens to those poor kids who their first exposure to reading is a book that their teacher tells them they must read for a grade or for participation points or to not be, shamed in elementary school or whatever. And they hate it. They hate the notion of being told what to read, and they don't like the book they're reading. They don't have any access to it. There's nothing for them to really grab onto when it comes to the characters or the world. It's just all too foreign to them, and they don't give a frick. What happens to them? Well, they're told to do another book. And maybe this one they don't like either. And then they've got another one that they have to read. And they're not, a voracious reader at this point because they're being told what to read. And they're like, I don't like this stuff. And so they're not getting done with their schoolwork and going and reading in their free time. They're hanging out with their friends or they're drawing or something else. And that's fine. There's nothing particularly wrong with that at all. But what's wrong is that these young kids tend to become people who say, I don't like reading. The truth is they've never read a book they liked. And they probably haven't looked around for books that they liked after a pretty crappy, middle school to high school experience where they were always told to read these classics that they hated and that were slogs and that felt irritating and that they had to push against, the authorities telling them to do what they had to do for a grade. They never read for love and they never found love and joy and lifting and, being carried away and transported in books. So they don't like reading. The truth is they haven't read something they liked, but I bet there's something out there that they could like, be it a comic or a graphic novel. It makes me sad. It makes me sad that we're continuing to push these centralized planning curricula where they must read these specific classics. Why can't we let them choose? Why can't we give them a broad variety of things from which to choose to read? It doesn't seem like it's that hard. Well, because the teacher can't manage that kind of thing, right, Jared? They have to have responses from the students about these books. Yeah, they do. Take 5 minutes. 4 kids a day, 5 minutes. Tell me about the book you're reading. Oh, I haven't read, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. Tell me about it. Well, tell me what you like about it. How come you like Alcatraz? What makes you laugh in this book? Does anything make you feel like you want to cry in this book? Oh, that's very interesting. I think I'm going to read this book now. Thanks, student, says the teacher. But they can't because their hands are so tied. So I'm now back to, I'm not giving teachers and kids space to just read widely and experience widely, and it makes me sad. So, my friends, if you're a person who says you don't like to read, what are you doing on my author channel, for one? Thank you very much for being here. But if you're a person who doesn't like to read, I promise you there's stuff out there that you'll like. Maybe it's my stuff. I don't know. I write somewhat unique niche stuff, as you may have noticed here. Please give something really fun looking another try. Walk through a bookstore and say, I'm leaving this bookstore or a library with one book that just looks cool. The cover looks cool and the blurb looks interesting, and I'm just going to read it because I think it's interesting or it looks fun. Be it fiction or nonfiction, please grab something and read it. And teachers, and really not the teachers, your teachers are okay. Curriculum managers and school people and freaking administrators. Hands off. Step back. Let the kids grow. Let the kids make their own choices about what they're going to read, and stop turning happy, curious, interested kids who may become great readers into people who hate reading because they hate reading those terrible classics. Okay? Luckily, my kid who just finished The Great Gatsby has been reading his whole dadgum life. But not every family has a culture of reading in their home like we do, okay? But because he's read so much and so widely his whole life, he loves reading. So when he reads The Great Gatsby, he's like, every page of this book is a slog and I hate it. And I hate it because of this. He can talk to why he hates it, right? If that was the only book he ever read, he would think that all books suck because kids are like that. So I think the idea of classics is a little broken, and maybe it's not really the idea of classics is broken, but the idea of, or the practice of coercing and forcing young people to read classics that they have no access to is broken. Give them something that they have real access to, or let them choose from a wide variety of well thought out books that teachers and parents have been able to collaborate on these book lists for. It's not hard to have teachers and parents collaborate on book lists. It's just not. Okay. So there we go. That's my thoughts on why classics are sort of broken. Your mileage may vary.